Hi everyone, my name is Juan Liana, and this is my persuasive speech for CST 100 with Professor Bachner on why you should join the Black Lives Matter movement. So let me begin by taking a general look at the numbers of incarceration rates in America. So there are over 7 million people under the control of the US criminal justice system, either incarcerated, on probation, or under parole supervision. This is more than 3% of the adult US population. The United States has 716 people incarcerated per every 100,000. This is the highest number of incarcerations in the whole world. Also, the United States houses 22% of the world's prison population. There are varying estimates on what percentage of the prison and correctional population is minority, but the general consensus seems to be at about 60%. So the US Census Bureau breaks it down as follows. About 46% of the adult correctional population is white American. Approximately 41% is African American. And approximately 19% is Hispanic. There is a general agreement that minorities in general, and African Americans in particular, are overrepresented in the American criminal justice system due to the systematic racism in our institutions. So what is Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter is a group that is fighting to eradicate social injustice and systematic racism. But before I tell you why you should join, let me tell you about the curious story of Trayvon Martin, illustrated by the New York Times writer Charles Blow in The Curious Case of Trayvon Martin. So Trayvon Martin had left his house, where him and his father were visiting, to walk to the 7-Eleven. On his way back, he got the attention of George Zimmerman, a 28-year-old neighborhood watch captain who was in a sport utility vehicle patrolling the area. Zimmerman called the police because he thought a boy looked real suspicious. The operator told Zimmerman that officers were being dispatched and not to pursue the boy. Zimmerman apparently pursued him anyways, at some point getting out of his car and confronting the boy. So the two allegedly engaged in a physical altercation. There was yelling and then a gunshot. Trayvon's lifeless body was taken away, tagged, and held, while Zimmerman was taken into custody, questioned, and then released. Zimmerman said he was the one yelling for help. He said he acted in self-defense. The police say they have found no evidence to dispute Zimmerman's claims. When the police arrived, Trayvon was face down in the grass with a fatal bullet wound shot to the chest. Zimmerman was standing with his blood in his face and the back of his head, with grass stains on the back. Trayvon had a bag of Skittles and a can of iced tea, while Zimmerman had a 9mm handgun. Even though it was proven that Trayvon was not in any way dangerous, he was only walking to the store to buy Skittles and a soda, George Zimmerman was absolved of any wrongdoing. This is a case of how the justice system discriminates against people of color. A teenager was brutally murdered because of the color of his skin and was considered self-defense because he was portrayed as suspicious. This event sparked mass protests, which led to the creation of the group we now know as Black Lives Matter. Racial bias has a horrendous impact on all stages of the criminal justice process. The most visible impact of racism is the gross imbalance between the number of white Americans and the number of minorities in U.S. prisons. One of the 1 in 3 African American males between the ages of 20 and 29 are somewhere in the American criminal justice system. So to see how this takes place, let me show you some charts made by the New York Police Department. So the first chart, it shows that blacks are 11 times more likely to be frisked by cops in New York than whites. On the second chart, it says blacks are 8 times more likely to be stopped than white. During stops that don't involve arrest, blacks are 12 times more likely to experience the use of force. Let that sink in. So now let's see our prison population here in Virginia. The population is 69% blacks in prison. How about Maryland? Well, Maryland is even higher. 72% of the population is black. That shows the great gross imbalance in our justice system. So why join Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter is a group that is fighting to eradicate social justice and the systematic racism that occurs in this country. Black Lives Matter is a human rights movement that challenges systematic racism in every single context. If you can relate to Trayvon Martin's story, or have been a victim of racism, and you want to speak up, ask yourself how we can make ourselves visible in this fight against racism. Come join us in the Black Lives Matter movement. Come help us fight against racism and bigotry. Come join us in the DC chapter of Black Lives Matter or any of your local chapters. And let's thrive to change the world, one person at a time. Thank you very much.